In today's video, we're going to take some thrifted items and we're going to upcycle them, and we're going farmhouse, country, rustic, and even a little primitive. My name is Cheryl, and welcome to Lifestyle of a DIYer. And let's get right into it with this wooden sign. Wooden signs are one of my favorite things to thrift. And look at this one, a chicken sitting on a toilet, a perfect candidate for an update. And I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color English Ivy. Normally I would remove all the hardware, but I couldn't get that chicken and hook off, so I'm going to do my best to paint around it. It took 2 coats of paint, and because it was a chalk paint, I needed to seal it, so here I'm using Annie Sloan clear wax to seal the paint. And then I used Annie Sloan dark wax to just give that green a richer tone. With that chicken on the bottom, I'm going to stick with a country theme, and I think this transfer will be perfect. It's by Redesign with Prima, and it's called Morning Farmhouse. And I'm going to apply the transfer to some washed drop cloth. Transfers are such an easy way to give a thrifted item a brand new look. They're easy to apply and they're not very expensive. I think this set of transfers is around $13 and you get about 12 transfers. I love the way transfers look on drop cloth. It's just a little tricky because you're applying it to fabric and that fabric can move, so you just have to hold it down well while you apply the transfer. And the transfers even come with the applicator, that little wooden stick. So you just want to rub until it's adhered to whatever you're applying it to. And I think it looks a little better than that chicken on a toilet, but you'll have to let me know what you think. Now I'm still going to try to use that chicken because it's a pretty cute chicken, just not on a toilet. This is a pretty heavy cardstock, so I have watched Deidre from An Upcycled Life do this many times. She just takes the tape and she tears back some of the paper to make the paper thinner so that you can decoupage with it. But I had no luck doing it this way. I hardly got any paper to come off, so I tried wetting the back of this and then just rubbing the extra paper off. And this worked a lot better, but by the time I was done, I just about destroyed the paper. And I didn't want to apply it to something that had any value to it because I didn't know how it was going to turn out, so I did it on this tin can. And I smushed the bottom of the can, and you can do that with a rubber mallet. And then I decoupaged, I put it back together, and then I decoupaged it to the tin can, and I just used Mod Podge. I used some plastic wrap to try to get that paper down into all the grooves, and I know it's looking pretty bad, but it's going to get better. I took some black paint and then I just painted over all the spots that were torn. And by this point, I am totally in on this tin can, and now I'm going to use Dixie Belle patina paint in that color iron to give this can an old rusty look, and it will also help me cover where the paper's torn, it's kind of white, it will help cover those edges. The way this paint works, you give it one coat of paint, let it dry, then you give it a second coat of paint, and while the paint's still wet, you spray it with the patina spray. And you use the green patina spray. My picture says blue, but I grabbed the wrong picture and I just realized it. Now I know a rusty tin can is not to everyone's liking, but I think it turned out really well. So then I just took my crocodile punch and I punched holes in both sides so I could make this into a little tin basket. Now I used the same color English ivy on these little thrifted boxes, and they also got 2 coats of paint. I'm just not having you watch me paint them. I didn't distress the sign, but I wanted to distress the boxes, so that's what I'm doing right here. To seal the paint on the sign, I used wax, but because I'm going to use transfers on these boxes, I sealed the paint with polyacrylic. And once everything was sealed and dried, then I used the dark wax. And I could go right to the dark wax because it was already sealed. The tops of the boxes, I haven't used any wax because that's where I'm going to apply the transfers. And I'm still using the same package of transfers, Morning Farmhouse. And you can see right here, I lifted that transfer too soon and I didn't get those tips on the leaves down. So that's what's nice with the transfer. You can just lay it back down and reapply it. Now this sign, I want it to look old and distressed, so I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm just going to go lightly over the transfer. And once the transfer's down, now I'm going to apply the dark wax. And I love using an old stencil brush. It helps me get that wax right down in that little grooved area. And here's how both the boxes turned out. I'm really loving these transfers for that country look. I found this on Pinterest. If you take a piece of steel wool and you add it to a jar of white distilled vinegar and leave it for a few days, you'll have a mixture that will age wood. And I thought I would try it on this basket. I thrifted this basket and it was only 97 cents. and I should have known why, because when I got it home, I noticed that it was pretty beat up. So I thought, I am gonna just try to make this basket look old, like it maybe should be beat up. So I had my mixture already prepared. I had waited probably a week, and I just brushed it on the basket. And I was a little worried because it looked like it was getting pretty orange, but I just left it overnight and let the mixture do its magic. I also thrifted this bag of patchwork fabric, and I thought some of the fabrics in here will be perfect for a messy bow. I tore the fabric into little strips. I also coffee stained a tea towel. I added some lace and some little just odds and ends of ribbon that I had, and I just kept crisscrossing them to make my messy bow. Oh, I also used some cheesecloth, because really with a messy bow, I think the more strings there are, the better the bow looks. It's just that kind of bow. It definitely has more of a primitive country look. I love buttons, but one thing about a button, it needs to have thread. And this is the only kind of thread I use for putting on a button that I'm using for some kind of crafting, like this. Because buttons need to have thread in those holes. And here's the before of that basket. And here's what it looks like now. Is that not amazing? It's not paint, it's just that recipe that ages wood. So now I was looking for something else to age, and I had these thrifted embroidery hoops that I've never used, so I thought this was the perfect item to try it out on. I didn't really have anything to go in the hoops, so I used some more of the drop cloth, and this time I used some stamps and black ink to just make up a little design to go inside the hoops. And I have lots of embroidery hoops, so I used some different ones just to make sure the design fit inside the hoop. I had all my drop cloth inserts ready to go. And now I just needed my wood to age. So I waited overnight, and then the next morning I transferred them to my now aged embroidery hoops. And then you'll have to let me know, which way do you like the best? I really like them with the aged wood, but I know it's not for everyone, but so let me know what you think. And of course, what we definitely need for this vignette is a rolling pin. And I'm just going to try to make this look like an old vintage rolling pin, and I'm going to paint the handles green. I want this paint to have a real rustic look, so I'm going to use some wax because the paint won't stick where the wax is. And once the paint was dry, I gave it a little sanding. And to seal the paint, I'm just going to use clear wax. I live in Las Vegas and everything dries out, so I'm just treating this rolling pin with some hemp oil. And the last project is this little caddy that I did a few years ago. Never really loved it. Used an IOD mold stamp, and I love the stamp. Just didn't like how this turned out. So I'm gonna redo this. And my first attempt was a complete fail. I tried to do the crackle effect using Elmer's glue, and I think I used way too much glue. So I'm gonna sand it off and start again. And this time I'm going to use milk paint in the color In a Pickle, because I want this caddy to look really old with lots of chippy paint, and I've never really had good luck getting chippy paint with milk paint, but I had a lot of nice comments in a previous video and they said I needed to use more paint. So I'm going to apply this paint a little thicker than I think I need to, and hopefully we get a chippy effect. Some of the crackle you see here is from the paint job, the prior paint job, because the parts that I liked, I left, but I did get some chippy. So I'm gonna take this as a win, because this is the first time I've ever got the paint to chip off, so we're all good. And I'm gonna use one more of the transfers from Morning Farmhouse. And I want this transfer to look like it is also old, so I'm really going to sand it to try to give it that old aged look. And I added some antiquing wax in Barnwood Gray. And here is how it all looks together. Everything on this hutch is thrifted, and the hutch I just recently purchased off of Marketplace, and I just love it. Now here's my hutch with a few added items for Valentine's Day, because you know, more is really better. And if you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.